first live show of the day. I'm so happy you're here. I have a fabulous guest for you as always. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Chef AJ, and I've been going live at least once a day since the sheltering in place began, just to create a sense of community and connection. And it turned out there's a lot of people that actually like to watch live and have been recommending fabulous guests to me, like Louise, who recommended today's guest. And it turns out he actually lives not too far from me part-time, so I'm going to get to actually meet him in person. You know, it's always best if you would consider signing up to be on my mailing list, because the night before the broadcast, we email out the schedule and tell you who the guest is so that you can send us questions in advance, as we do try to get to as many questions as we can in the live chat. So my guest is named Tom Glaser. He's the author of the best-selling book, Full Heart Living, and he is going to talk about happiness in general, but specifically in the time of COVID-19. Welcome, Tom. It's so nice to meet you.
Chef, thanks so much for having me here. It's such a pleasure. I've been wanting to meet you for a long time.
Well, it's so nice to meet you. You know, it's funny because even when we didn't have COVID-19, these are extraordinary times we're living in. And of course, we're not trying to diminish anybody's suffering because of it. But before this even happened, one day I was just thinking about how we live in a world, you know, I'm 60 years old, and I think about how there is more opportunity for fun right now than ever before. There's so many things to do in the world. Lives are so much easier than they were for my parents and grandparents, yet there is so much unhappiness. It seems like there's more depressed people than ever before. And so I'd love for you to talk about just happiness in general. What is it? Why it seems to elude so many people, and how we can be happier even during these difficult times.
It seems so ironic, doesn't it? Right here we are, particularly in our culture, we are so blessed by so many material things, right? We live lives of great comfort, and yet you named it absolutely. The levels of depression and anxiety continue to rise despite our rising material wealth. So what's up with that? I think we're looking in the wrong places, and that's what we'll be talking about today. What are the right places?
What are the right places?
That's what we got to focus on. Absolutely. So you asked what happiness is. It's a trickier question than it might seem at first take, right? It's kind of like, I've come to discover, it's like art. How do we define art? Or how do we define a color? I know blue when I see it. I know art when I see it. Happiness is very similar. We know when we're happy. And it's something, even the Dalai Lama says, we all want. We're all striving for it. We're all working for it. I think it's how we make most, if not all, of our decisions. We think the choices we make, or we make the choices we do because we want to be happier. So have you heard of Gretchen Rubin by any chance?
Yes, I have.
So she wrote, oh gosh, no, I'm blanking on her first book, which was so good and really made, all her books are great. But, it's The Happiness Project. She wrote The Happiness Project and a bunch of other books after that. But one of the things that has always stood out to me from what she said about the definition of happiness is we all have a sense, and this changes over time, but we have a sense of what will make us happier. So, and that's okay to not get stuck on any definition of happiness, because it means different things to us, even at different points in our lives. But to keep working toward being happier, like that's enough. So that's what I've been encouraging people to do. Keep working toward being happier, and even that word. See, I caught myself, I used the word work in there. How about playing? Let's play to be happier.
Who was it? Was it Will Rogers who said that people are about as happy as they make up their mind to be?
Yes, isn't that so true? That's a really good point. That is something that I've learned in all my research, is the intentionality piece. That people who are happier make a decision. In our culture, it's like we have to make a decision because, again, we're in this Western culture. First of all, human beings, we're primed toward negativity, right? That's for survival. That's for safety. We want to know how to avoid danger. So our whole nervous system is set up to remember difficult times, challenges, to remember dangerous situations we've been in the past and to avoid them in the future. So we're like high tuned. We're on the alert for danger, for negative news. It's not all bad. And we can really get stuck there and forget about the blessings that we have, forget about the good times, or even miss altogether precious, precious moments that again, back to that original question, what helps us be happier? What are the right questions? If we're asking the wrong questions, we get to an unintended place. So just knowing all that really helps me. Every day I think about this, my own negativity bias. I think about this consciously. And I just notice it. I'm not judging myself for it, which might make it worse. And I really try to monitor, particularly right now, Chef, with all that's going on right now. We need to be informed. This is always true. We need to be informed enough. But what's enough? And being really mindful about everything we put into our bodies. So this is, of course, huge in your work, looking at what we ingest physically. But the news media is something we also ingest. If we think about it that way, we expose ourselves. And I think we could be much more mindful and careful about how much we take in and how it's affecting us.
Very good. Do you think that there's a genetic component to happiness? Because sometimes it seems to, like, misery seems to run in families.
Yes, I do think there is. The problem with that, so we used to think it was just a genetic set point, period. We thought that was all there was, and you were just born with a certain constitution, and you're just pretty much stuck with it. More recent research by neuroscientists have helped us discover that yes, there is that set point. So we come into the world with a general tendency toward optimism or pessimism or anxiety or peacefulness or happiness. And that's just one factor. There's two other major, if you think of it in terms of like a pie, let's say the genetic factor is about 33%. And that, don't quote me, I might be wrong on the exact percent, but it's around 35%, let's say. Then there are environmental factors that we can't do so much about, like where we were born, the family we were born into, all those sorts of things. Then let's say that's about a third. Again, some of my exact percentage points might be a little bit off, but then there's this whole other third that we have direct control over every single day. And again, these are the lifestyle choices that we make that dramatically impact how we feel. Again, you know so much, probably way more than I do about this part, Chef. What we put in our body matters. It affects how we feel immediately and down the road, a few minutes from now, a few hours from now, even a few months from now. So that we have much more control or input into our general happiness than we think. So yes, there's a portion that does seem to be inborn, but we don't want to just take that as and give up. People use that then to give up. Well, I'm just a depressed person. They'll say stuff like that. No, I'm a person who sometimes experiences depression. That's a better way to say it.
Yeah, that does make sense. That's why I didn't resonate with 12-step programs for food addiction recovery or anything, because I didn't like to say I am this, because I don't feel like I am, this. I feel like I'm in recovery from this. Like, do you know what I'm saying? Like,
Totally,
like what they want you to say, and I'm not bashing the programs for the people it works for, but for me, I remember I was sent as a teenager to one called Emotional Health Anonymous, and you had to say, like, I'm powerless over my emotions. And I couldn't do it because I feel like if I say I'm powerless, I am powerless. And if I say I'm powerless over my food addiction, I feel like I am powerful. So I didn't want to have to say those things in those programs.
Yes, I get that. We want to be aware of how we label ourselves. We want to be very careful. Our subconscious is so susceptible. So yes, this is something I work with as a psychologist and as a life coach, chef all the time, with just looking at what messages am I giving myself? What am I consciously and unconsciously saying that then sometimes, this part of me believes and just takes it at face value. So I really appreciate that. I think, again, this is where the mindfulness practice can be so useful, that we just wake up to these patterns of self-talk and even what we say to other people about ourselves, because it is like, the more we say it, the more we believe it, it becomes true.
Terrific. Are you familiar with the book called The Pleasure Trap by Dr. Lyle and Goldhammer? They're frequent guests on my show. The reason I bring it up is they talk about something called the moods of happiness. And do you think that sometimes people confuse pleasure with happiness? Because sometimes things that bring people pleasure in the moment, like drugs or alcohol or hedonic eating, they don't really create long-term happiness.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I'm not saying that we shouldn't have pleasure in life. Of course. Oh my gosh. Thank God we do have pleasure. But right, do those things that bring us pleasure in the moment really lead to long-term happiness? So let's go back again to one of your original questions. What really does bring about happiness? So I wrote this book, Full Heart Living: Conversations with the Happiest People I Know, that you held up earlier. I'll hold it up again. This is my book. This is my little baby, my labor of love right here. So I interviewed the happiest people I personally know. And one of the reasons I chose to do 1 degree of separation, people I personally know, is to remind us that we all know really happy people. These aren't just these lucky few, famous celebrities. All of us know really, really happy people. And so I interviewed them on camera. This project started as a documentary series. The first day of filming, Chef, was one of the best days of my whole life. I was so happy being in the presence of happy people, talking about what makes them tick, talking about what makes them happy. That's when I realized, I'd known for years that I would write a book someday, but I didn't know until that day what it was going to be about. I was like, here's what I'm going to write my book about, because I could do this day in and day out. So what I learned is that, so first of all, there's 20 chapters. So there's a ton of components of happiness, things like gratitude, which we already mentioned just a little bit earlier, being in alignment with my values, being true to myself. But there are 4 key things that happier people do. This is what I learned. This is the distillation of my whole book.
Everybody should get out a pen. If you don't want to get this, if you don't want to get this wonderful book, which I'm posting the link for on Amazon, get out the pen, because this is the big reveal we've been waiting for.
That's right. Here you go. Happier people connect really deeply with other people. We are social beings. Happier people have great relationships with other people. They have a tribe. They have a support system. They have people who love them and who they love. It's that reciprocity thing. So that's number 1, connections with other people. Happier people connect really deeply with themselves. So what do we mean there? That's mindfulness, which I was just talking about a moment ago. That's knowing who you are and honoring yourself. That's being in the present moment, so you don't miss out on all the beautiful, wonderful gifts that we have. Happier people also connect really deeply with their passions, Chef. They have activities that they adore, and that they do a ton of them. And that's like getting into that flow, right? Most of us, if not all of us, have certain activities that just bring so much life to us that we lose all sense of time when we're engaged with those activities. So those are the top 3: connecting with other people, connecting with self, connecting with passions. The 4th component, I always call this the Holy Grail. If you can do any or all of those things in the service of other people, look out. Like, that's when you just get the greatest bang for your buck. Those are the happiest people I know, are people who are actively engaged in making the world a better place. How can we be of service to others? How can we leave the planet better than when we arrived?
Absolutely. I'm sitting here with Bailey on my lap and I'm thinking it doesn't seem that complicated for animals to be happy. I mean, unless they're in, horrific situations, you walk around and most animals, like I just had a hummingbird lay some eggs and the birds are hatching and, the animals don't seem to walk around unhappy.
No, right? Unless their needs are not met, though, right? Like you were getting at. If they don't have a tribe, if they don't have a family, most animals are very social beings. Also, a very few. There's very few exceptions. Basically, animals. So it's the same thing. They're connected to each other. Animals are very much in the moment. Dogs, in particular, have so much to teach us about that, right? Bailey's always in the present moment. That's really, Bailey has a memory. Bailey can anticipate to some degree, but Bailey doesn't get lost in memory or so paralyzed by fear of what's coming. Bailey's really here in the here and now. Bailey also may not know it, but Bailey has a purpose. Bailey, no, he doesn't even question why he's here. He brings meaning to his life by being with you, right? By just his sheer being. He doesn't question. So again, this is, well, not again, this is part of that Holy Grail thing that I didn't explicitly mention this. It's purpose. That's the service of other people. That people who find their purpose in life and live it in alignment with their values, and again, remain connected with themselves and others. In a nutshell, that is a recipe for happiness right there. I do want to mention the foundation that you and I talked about before going live. Taking care of our bodies is really important. And this really is important right now in this age of COVID-19. We really need to take care of our bodies. We need to move our bodies. Our bodies are designed to move. We need to move our bodies every single day. And I know you're a huge proponent of that. We also need, as I was mentioning earlier, to be really careful with what we expose our bodies to. Think of food. I don't know if you use this or not, Chef. Have you ever used this analogy of information? Food is like information to the body. You've heard that metaphor before?
Absolutely. And it either, I always think about that it either supports your health or it deteriorates your health. And that's kind of how I look at it. It's not generally neutral.
And I always like to say, think of the old days, the early days of Google, before spell correct. If we entered the wrong information into the search bar, it led us to something we did not want. It's better now, they improved it, there's spell check and all that. It's more intuitive. But food is the same way. If we give our bodies the wrong information, we get a result that we don't want. Food, rest, physical activity, like I was mentioning before, even how much we expose ourselves to the news, these are information for the body. So just think about, if we have more intentionality, if we can be more careful, it's not that we never watch the news, that we never have a treat, that we never have a rest. If this is the other thing, really listening to your body. I feel like that's just huge. Like, what does my body really need right now? Intuitive eating and making intuitive choices, really important. These all serve as tremendous foundations for mental health, happiness included. So to attend to all these, that really, we used to think about in all the areas we could make changes in our lives. We used to recommend in my field, go to the one that you're most drawn to, or the one you feel you're the weakest in. But now, I think better advice is starting with that foundational of the physical body. Really attend to that first, because that takes care of so many of the other problems. It sets the stage so that the brain is clearer and can do the kinds of things you and I are talking about more easily.
You know, when you're talking about community, how big does it have to be? Because from what I understand from evolutionary psychology, we evolved in tribes that were, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 people. And does it depend on whether or not somebody's an introvert or an extrovert? Because I'm seeing that people are responding to the pandemic in general and the sheltering in specifically based on how introverted or extroverted they are.
Yes, I'm seeing that too. I feel terrible for my extroverted friends. It's like hell for them. I mean, it's bad enough for me. So I'm an introvert, a very social introvert. I love people, but I definitely need my downtime to recover. And I think this time is easier for me. It sounds like that's true for you too. In terms of numbers, offhand, I'm not remembering the exact numbers. I know that has been researched and talked about. I feel like to some degree that is personal. And again, I remember reading some research about that there's only so many people we can have a really close, intimate relationship with, and then everybody else is on a farther ring, like they're more acquaintances or or that kind of thing. But I don't know the exact number. What I do know is we absolutely all need to know we have some people that we can count on kind of no matter what. That's a pretty essential need. We need to have people who are interested in us, who have our back. We need to have people who want the best for us, who support us. We also need some people who challenge us. This is what I have come to learn as I have matured, is that I really value the people in my life who take the risk and call me on my crap, who tell me, Tom, you weren't very skillful there, and you can go, oh my God, you're right. Oh my, I didn't say that well. Thank you for helping me see that there's a better way. So we also need people who support us in that way, who kind of, hold us accountable.
One of the quotes I keep quoting him. I'm sorry, I just love him. He's a psychologist, Dr. Lyle. He says, "You need to earn esteem in the right way from the people who matter."
Ah, yes. What a beautiful quote.
Yeah.
You need to earn esteem from the people who matter, because you're going to believe it. You're going to believe them then,
Yeah,
right?
but in the right way, he said. It's important that in the right way. And so when did you get interested in, why did you get interested in studying happiness in the first place?
So in graduate school, first of all, here's the thing. To become a psychologist, you got to study all the problems, all the diagnoses, right? That is much of what we study. Really important. Nothing wrong with doing that. I'm so glad I have all that information. But I will tell you, there was not that much where we looked at, how does one maintain or avoid mental health issues. But when we did study those things, I just noticed I perked up. So I've always had some kind of bias toward really not just studying what goes wrong and how can we help people when they're in trouble, but what provides the conditions to mental health. And then the truth is, what happened is I had my dream job, chef, for about 7 years or so. I most days could not wait to wake up and go to work. I coordinated a counseling service at a university, and it was all the things I love: the individual psychotherapy, and I got to teach, and not just teach, but teach about things I'm passionate about, wellness promotion. And I got to train orientation leaders and resident advisors, and it was like the job was made for me. So I was going to retire at this job until one day a new coworker showed up who I could not escape. We were regularly assigned activities together, and it was a very small staff. And this person could not stand the sight of me, chef. I tried everything I could to make it work with this person. I stayed for about 1.5 years beyond, but there was so much tension. This person just hated me. And I was getting depressed. My dream job turned into well, not totally a nightmare. Still half of the job I really loved, but half of it was painful. And at 50-50 isn't a good enough ratio. They just kind of cancel each other out. Most of us have some parts of our jobs we don't like, but it's a small enough percentage that we're willing to put up with that. So thank God my husband finally one day looked at me and said, Tom, you're miserable. This is not worth it. You got to get out of there. I woke up in that moment. I listened to him and I gave up my dream job. So I had tremendous grief because I was so attached to this job and I felt so alive before this coworker showed up, at least. In the midst of this grief and depression, I noticed really happy people all around me. And I just got really curious and I was just like, what are they doing that I'm not doing right now? And so I just watched for a while and then I got braver and I started asking them some questions. And then I got more brave and it just asking more questions. It snowballed into those interviews I talked about on camera. So I invited 9 of the happiest people I know to be on camera. And that's how this whole project came about, is through my own grief, loss, and depression, actually.
Where can we find these interviews?
Fullheartliving.com.
Great. I'll post that link as well.
Awesome.
What do you think of the barriers right now to mental well-being and happiness during this difficult pandemic that we're experiencing?
Yes, I've been thinking about that a ton, particularly as I'm working with clients. The themes that are emerging to me so far, I don't feel like this is definitive at all. This is just what I'm getting so far. I feel like it's the lack of predictability. There's so much unknown still right now. We don't, when's this going to end? What's going to happen? What's the world going to be like soon? There's just so much that we don't know. That leads to point 2, then we have an inability to plan or lack of things to look forward to in the way that we used to, right? For me, so often I would one of the things that would help me get through every day is looking forward to the next vacation, let's say. When you're in the desert, when's the next time, a place that you know is dear to my heart too, when's the next time I'm going to get out to Palm Springs? I don't know right now. That's harder for me, like that. And I have grief over that anticipation, right? So lack of predictability, inability to plan. And we're also feeling like we have less control. We have less agency. The things I do, well, let's just say it this way, less control, when we do have less control, right? To protect ourselves, we need to be following the advice of people smarter than us. So this is hard. This is trying, I think particularly for us Americans, us Westerners, we're trained to think that our actions have a lot, that we have agency in that we can make things different. And there's a lot of truth to that. And there's a lot of happiness that comes from that, from pursuing goals, making things happen, being resilient in the face of difficulty. Of course, nothing wrong with all that. And there are things that are truly out of our control right now. And I don't know that that's really any different. It's just that we're waking up to it more. Like it's so much more clear. Like we always, there always was lack of predictability. It just seemed that there was more predictability, right? So I think those are the 3 things: lack of predictability, inability to plan, and feeling out of control. That, again, this is just preliminary based on what I'm hearing so far from clients and friends and my own experience. Do you agree?
Absolutely. And that's where I think mindfulness can be really helpful because, you know, as bad as it is right now for me, there's nothing bad going on. There's no threat right now here in my house. And
Yeah.
I think when you bring things back to the present moment, because I'm a very anxious person, I technically have the diagnosis of panic disorder with agoraphobia. And I've done very well within having that. But I think,
It's amazing, isn't it? Can I just interrupt you real quick? Because how great is that? And I hope everybody at home is celebrating this. Look at what we can do despite a very difficult thing. You have just said, hey, I want to live my life. I'm going to find a way. It's so inspiring. Sorry,
Thank
sorry
you.
to interrupt
No,
you,
no,
but
that's okay. Because actually, they talked in 2007. I was on a show on National Geographic where they talked about it and why I got a service dog, because that's what really helps me. I don't want to take psychiatric medication. I'm allergic to almost everything I've ever taken. And so, yeah, this is something that I don't really deal with as Chef AJ, but that's a part, I'm not ashamed of it. It's just not that important to me right now because I manage it basically. And Nancy has a question. She'd like to hear your thoughts on anxiety. Isn't anxiety always just about like just worrying about something that in the future, pretty much?
well, oh, that's a difficult question. Yes, I mean a short, simple answer is yes, absolutely, and that's a huge component of anxiety. And when that is a component, that's really helpful to identify that and bring yourself back indeed to the present moment. Is it only about fear of the future? No, it's much more complicated than that. Much, much, much more complicated. Often, what I see, Chef, so often with really any mental health condition, whether it's anxiety or something else, so often there's trauma somewhere, often in the early childhood. So not 100%, no, but so often that that is where I have gone in my career so much, is really looking at trauma and trauma. I don't love the word resolution, but we don't really have a better word yet. Trauma resiliency might be a better word that I hope comes into the lexicon soon. But yes, for I would say for the average person, yes, our most anxiety is about too much looking forward, not being enough in the present moment. And often that is very helpful to just identify that pattern and come back using the senses. This is the key, especially at the beginning. What's happening right now? What do I smell right now? What's in my immediate eyesight right now? What color do I see? What form do I see? What shape? What am I hearing right now? Are there birds? Is Bailey making a little noise as he rests on your lap? What do I feel on my skin? The senses are a great entree back into the present moment.
Yeah, that sounds great. So why encourage people to be happy now? I mean, this, is it a priority even now? I mean, shouldn't we be focusing on, getting enough toilet paper?
Yeah, we got more important things to worry about. I totally get that. Yes, and uh, so first of all, maybe, yeah, make sure you do got some toilet paper. That toilet paper is important. Make sure you got your supplements. Make sure you got decent food. Make sure you got your sneakers so you can go out for a walk every day. Yeah, there's a time to attend to our immediate needs. Absolutely. Um, Again, the Dalai Lama says everyone wants to be happy. Yeah, there's great utility in being happy, even in the midst of a pandemic. We know that happier people do more good things, Chef. Happier people donate more money. Happier people volunteer more. Happier people help other people be happier more. Like I was saying, one of the happiest days in my own life was when I started these interviews and I sat with really tremendously happy people and talked about what makes them happy. Happiness is contagious. So it's not just for ourselves. It's not just selfish or hedonistic to strive to be happier. It's good for everyone. I really believe that happier people, Chef, do less harm in the world. So absolutely, it's worth it to keep pursuing happiness. And I think we need it. I think we need it more than ever in these trying times too. I mean, I'm thinking of Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. He talked about, I mean, in some of the most dire circumstances any human being has ever endured, right? Concentration camps. He noticed the simplest pleasures every day.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite books, Man's Search for Meaning.
Yeah.
I always said if I could interview one person or meet one person throughout human history, it would have been him. And there's a movie that I've talked about a few times called Life is Beautiful, where Roberto Benigni won the Best Actor Oscar, where it's a comedy, it's not a full comedy, but he's in a concentration camp and he makes the best of the situation. So his son almost doesn't even know what they're living in. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you ever find, I find this so much with the people I work with that are struggling with food addictions or trying to lose weight. And I find this that, until this, they can't lose weight until this event happens, like some stressful thing in their life is resolved, which never gets resolved because we're always going to have stress. Or I can't be happy until I get married, until I make more money. Do you see what I'm saying? It's almost like people are delaying happiness and weight loss and other things in their life until something external occurs. But that doesn't sound like it would work.
No, 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 no. No, I know exactly what you mean. And who of us has, again, in Western culture, who hasn't experienced that? Uh, in fact, in the book, I talk about a colleague who thought all she needed to be happy was a leather couch. Once she had her brown leather couch in her living room, all was going to be fine in the world. And she was so happy the day the couch arrives, and she's celebrating, she's loving her new couch, and it's so comfortable. It's just what she always wanted. So she's laying there enjoying the couch, and all of a sudden she notices her mind says, oh, I really need a new coffee table. I really need a new car. It's like, right, the material stuff, there's always something else, or even an external, like, yeah, I'm not going to be happy till I have this certain relationship. It's a fantasy, right? And you're right. That's like delaying our happiness. So the book is called Full Heart Living. That the person delaying happiness until they're married, for instance, they're not fully accepting the reality of the present moment, right? I called it full heart living because happier people live with their full heart. It's not that happier people have any less hardship or challenges or downtimes. It's that they don't try to not have unhappy times. They embrace it. They realize that's part of life, part of having a whole, living fully is embracing, oh, I'm single now. You don't have to love it. But if you're lonely because you're single, oh, wow, this is loneliness. This is what loneliness feels like. And it's the avoidance of loneliness, the avoidance of unhappiness, the trying to not have it, like the suppressing of it. That's where people get into so much trouble. Because the more we try to suppress unhappy or quote unquote negative emotions, the more we do that, the more we also, there's always the parallel, the more we're shoving down positive emotions. We can't do it only on one side, is what I've seen in so many people. So just embracing the truth of whatever is right now, which again gets us back to COVID-19, right? Okay, so what is right now? Right now is, I don't have a vacation to look forward to. I don't know when I'm going to Palm Springs. I don't know when I'll see a movie. I don't know when I'll go to a restaurant. I don't know when I'll hug my family members who I'm not living with. Oh, that's, wow, how does that affect me? Waking up to that, embracing the fullness of the experience now. I'm not dwelling there, but I'm not ignoring it either. It's being okay with it, letting it just run its course. It's like when we cry, we have to cry. Crying releases some of the emotion. It expels through our tears some of the built up tension in our body. We need to cry. We cry for a reason. We need to have all of our feelings. So just embracing the fullness of what is now. And here's the other thing, like with using that example, the person who, I'm not going to be happy till I'm married. And let me say, there may be some truth in that. I believe, again, we're social creatures. We do need to be in relationships. Not that everyone has to be married. It's just fine to be single. But that we use our feelings to propel us. This is why we have all of our feelings. Feelings help us figure out, oh, something's missing in my life, or I need to make a change. What, and then again, using mindfulness, intention, and skillful means. So given that I'm lonely, given that I really want to be married, what do I need to do? What's my next step? Have the feeling and, getting curious. What's going to help me get what I know would bring me more happiness? There's nothing wrong with, like I was saying earlier, having a goal and working toward it. In fact, that's a great place of happiness for many of us, working towards something that maybe is kind of challenging. Wow, taking some risks. I have a whole chapter in my book on risk taking. I'm not talking about taking risks that are dangerous or life threatening, but graded risks with enough support. Happier people do take risks, and they are working toward things that are just that stretch them a little bit.
Nice. So I have a very nice comment that I want to read to you, but when they go quickly. Oh, Gina says, just listening to Tom and you makes me happy. I'm feeling happy right now. Do you take clients that don't live in Minnesota?
For coaching, yeah. I can't do psychotherapy over state lines unless I'm licensed in the state, but absolutely. I do life coaching, personal coaching, and that I can do telephonically or over a medium like Zoom, like you and I are using right now.
You said telephonically. I wish you could do it telepathically so that I don't have to take any time to do
you were hoping, yeah, we could just dial it in that way.
do all my therapy telepathically. You just let's see. Nope. Naomi says she really likes this speaker. She's so glad I brought you to her. And she had a nice comment about something her minister said. Oh gosh. About our pastor just talked about this at a staff meeting. She said, live life fully now and don't wait until ... Nice. Yeah. Louise says, do you encourage people to keep daily journals?
Is this our Louise?
Yeah, Louise Cohn Silver, who brought you to me.
Yay, thank you, Louise. I was hoping I'd have an opportunity to say hi. Do I encourage daily journaling? It's a great thing for a lot of people. There are people who hate it and there are people who love it. So yes, if you're drawn to it at all, I say give it a try. I've done it on and off in my own life. When I have done it, I have found it extremely helpful. You've heard of morning pages by any chance?
I haven't.
I'm blanking out on the Julia Cameron, who wrote The Artist's Way. She talks about morning pages. I love this. So you write 3 pages first thing when you wake up. And I did this for several years. And it's just kind of stream of consciousness. You just kind of download whatever's on your mind in the moment without editing or worrying about grammar or spelling or any of that. You just get it all down. I find that extremely useful, particularly when people are struggling with things. I also often encourage people to write what we call the unsent letter. So if you have something that's tricky to express to a loved one or someone you're struggling with, that you start by addressing a letter to them, similarly to what I was just talking about. You just download. You're not editing for grammar. It's not supposed to be perfect. You just get everything out, your feelings, your wants, your experiences, what happened. That can be extremely cathartic and really help people let down. So yes, I think writing things can dramatically change our mindset. Again, it doesn't work for everyone, but I think it's a very powerful tool. And I do recommend it, not infrequently.
Nice. Well, May is Mental Health Awareness Month. So I'm wondering, once we achieve happiness and good mental health, how do we maintain it? And if we don't have it, how do we achieve it?
Right. So back to those top learnings, starting with the foundation, I absolutely encourage people to attend to their body's needs for movement, nutrition, sleep, and rest. That's foundational. Back to the top learnings of full heart living, connecting really deeply with other people, making the most of your relationships. It can be really easy for us in modern life to forget about our loved ones. We got jobs. Our jobs are very demanding. Um, there's so much to do. Homeowners, there's always a project in the house. Really making relationships a priority, knowing that they just feed our souls. We really need to be connected to other people. Making time to be connected with oneself. This is huge. Spending time in nature. Um, uh, I recommend often some form of meditation. So this doesn't literally have to be, um, you know, sitting in the lotus position with a mantra, or sitting in silence for 3 months out of the year. For some people, it's some kind of repetitive activity. It can be knitting or crocheting or sewing. It could be as simple as walking mindfully, particularly for people who find meditation harder to access. Um, any kind of movement meditation, yoga, tai chi, super, super helpful. The idea, did I mention yoga? Yoga's huge. Yoga's huge, 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 huge. I'm in, by the way, yoga teacher training right now. I'm loving it. It's adding so much. The idea with these activities is getting the body and the mind to be in the same place at the same time. Our culture does not teach us that very well. We're taught to be thinking all the time, to be up here, planning ahead, getting things done, making money. There's a time to do all that. I'm not dismissing that, saying that it's all bad, but it can train us to dissociate from ourselves too much, and that can lead to so much suffering. So the idea with all these mindfulness activities is just getting us to be here now, coming back to the body, coming back to the breath, coming back to the present moment. Again, so we don't miss out on these precious moments that really bring joy to life. Connecting with your passions, making time for activities that bring you joy, that get you into that flow. Whatever that is, you don't have to be good at it. It's just that you enjoy doing it, whether that's singing is a good one. Music is huge for happiness. Listening to music, and even more so making music, is huge. But whatever your hobby is, making that a priority, taking time. And then the fourth, of course, just thinking about, how am I making the world a better place? What am I doing to improve the lives of others? What am I doing to improve the health of the planet? These are the things that happier people do. They connect really deeply with other people, themselves, their passions, and they give back. So again, if in a prescription, in a nutshell, that's how we maintain mental health. That's how we maintain happiness. That's how we maintain resilience, so that we can continue to show up even in a pandemic like this.
Right. I love that idea of resiliency. And I think that's why we both like Viktor Frankl so much, because it's not what happened to him. Was his response to it. And that's why a lot of people say, well, I can't lose weight because I had this horrible experience in my childhood or something. And yet, not to diminish that it was horrible, but that's not the reason today that you can't lose weight. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like a lot of times people use things in their long ago past as a reason that they can't succeed today. I don't believe that, because I've had horrible trauma and abuse, and I feel like you can still do things. I think about the people that really inspire me, like, I can't pronounce his last name, but Nick, the man that was born without arms and legs. Mm-hmm. And he wanted to kill himself, and it was kind of hard without arms and legs, but I saw him speak at a church to thousands of people, and I was the most inspirational thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's like, I think you can be happy despite what happened to you, because like I say, like, if I go back, when I get anxious, if I just go back to the present moment, I'm sitting in a beautiful house in a beautiful city with a beautiful dog. I have food in my belly, and I have no problems right now. And that's the thing. Right now, all is well in my world.
It's so beautiful. You're focusing on the truth, on things that matter. That's so beautiful. Let me say a couple of things about that person you mentioned who feels stuck And many of us do feel stuck at various times. I want to talk about two things. There's this, my spiritual teacher, the Venerable Dahani Uwahu, she's a Cherokee woman, an elder, talks about the triangle. So we, at the top of the triangle, we have our mind. And then the bottom two pieces are our heart and intention. Okay, so all these three things are really important. We've got our thoughts, we've got our feelings, we've got love, and then we've also got our intention. So that person you mentioned who feels stuck because of trauma, so I can't lose weight because I was abused as a child. Again, not minimizing that either. Of course not. That's horrible. I feel terrible that happened to you. But let's look at these three components. You might be missing a little bit on your intention. Your intention is to lose weight. Because you don't feel good, you're unhealthy or whatever. We got to work a little bit on this area. You're a little bit too much up here. Your thoughts, you're thinking too much about it in a way that's not serving you. Your thoughts are stuck. You're looping. Almost always this is true in cases like this. What's the solution? It's back to that number one piece of happiness, connecting with another person. When we've experienced abuse and we're stuck, it's because there's a disconnect. Trauma and abuse is a disconnect. By definition, there's been a disconnect. And it's in a relational disconnect. It's through relationship that we can heal. So I would say to that person, find somebody you can really trust. It might be a therapist. It might just be a dear, beautiful, good, wise friend. Really talk about these patterns of thinking that are keeping you stuck. And with someone who's loving and skilled, you just notice the patterns. You see, oh, I'm thinking in this, you begin to wake up. I keep thinking in this same way that keeps me stuck. And in relationship, you have the support of love, your intention becomes clearer and your thoughts become clearer so that you can do the things you need to do like you did. Somehow I don't know fully your story. I know enough of your story to know that somehow you found a way, Chef, through what you went through to be like, yeah, that happened. That it's not about denying it. Yeah, okay, that is a part of my history. I can't change what happened before now. And you were so clear on your intention, right? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna find a way. And you did. Look at where you are now. Hello.
That's amazing. So Ellen has a question. What's the difference between happiness and contentment?
Happiness and contentment. I guess I'm sort of back to that eye of the beholder question. And the Gretchen Rubin piece that I was talking about earlier, I think what's important is it's the keeping working toward what is going to make me happier. Contentment to me, it's subjective, right? We each have our own definition. There are moments of contentment, but that's pretty similar to happiness too. My own personal definition is broader maybe than many people. To me, it's really about the essence of it. It isn't about that momentary fleeting happiness. It's about finding a way to make a life worth living, to embrace meaning. And we're back to Viktor Frankl, aren't we? Again, someone who endured probably the worst things we can imagine and found a way to make meaning of it. How inspiring is that? Can we all take at least a little bit of that and make meaning out of this time of COVID-19? And I'll tell you again, this is what I'm finding inspiring in my work with clients these days, is I'm seeing people doing that very thing. They're really waking up to their priorities. I'm thinking of clients who are spending so much more time with their children, for instance, and who are so happy that they have this opportunity to spend recess together, to be forced to find creative ways to spend time together. Um, so people have said to me, I don't want to lose this. When we get back to normal, I need to find a way to keep this. To me, that just makes me feel alive and happy. Yeah, your value is being revealed to you. How beautiful is that? That's making meaning out of a very challenging time for many of us.
I want to know what this cute little deck of cards is that you sent me. It looks like a game.
Yes, I don't have a better name for it, so I'm calling it a game too. Here's what happened. That came from my public speaking gigs. When my book first came out about 3 or so years ago, Chef. So I was going around telling people the things I've told you, that happier people connect more deeply with themselves, other people, their passions, and they're in the service of others. And so I would speak to people for 45 minutes or an hour, and I'd tell them about the book, and I would end it by saying, I hope I've inspired you to connect more deeply with other people. What do you think people would do when I would say that?
I'm not sure. Freak out? No.
Well, you just shrugged. Yeah, they had no idea what they did. Even though I had just talked about it for 45 or 60 minutes, they didn't know how to do it. So I realized I need to remind, or in some people, inform people, how do we connect more deeply with ourselves and others? So really quickly, I changed my kind of what I'm calling my signature presentation, where I go out and talk about my book. So half of it is talking about it. Half of it is experiential, and I lead people through this activity where we talk about something. One person talks about something meaningful, and another person listens in a very specific and particular way, and then gives feedback in a particular way. So from that, and we're gonna, if you're still game, we'll try this together, and I'm gonna listen in this way to you, and I'll give you a prompt. From that, I developed this little box of goodies, I call it. So this is 102 conversation sparks. I used to call them conversation prompts, and a beta tester said, no, that's too boring of a word. These are sparking conversation. And I love that word. So that's where that came from. So there's 102 of those sparks. So you can sit down with a small group of people, or just one person, or even yourself, back to Louise's question about journal writing, and connect more deeply. So if you're ready, let's just give it a try, and we'll see how it goes.
I didn't know that I was going to have to perform.
I'm putting you on the spot a little bit.
That's okay. I luckily I study improvisational comedy every week, and
I forgot about that. That's right. Good. You'll be just fine. No worries.
Yeah, and what's great is all the classes are online now, because one of my biggest fears in life, one of my phobias, is driving. I do it, but I never like it, and so all my classes are online now. It's wonderful.
Bonus, absolutely. Okay. So I'm going to give you this conversation prompt. You just respond from the heart. Just take a minute or two. Just say what comes to you in the moment, and I will respond, and then I'll highlight what I was listening for, and how I did it, and that'll be a demonstration of a conversation spark. So, Chef, tell me about a time you felt the most alive, and why.
Oh boy. Oh my God. I like 10 things came to mind. You know, okay, God, I don't know which one to pick, because I have so many moments. But believe it or not, most of them involve some kind of like teaching, when I've been teaching something. So, I had like 10 things come to my head, like when I was when I've done presentations, like speaking at Dr. McDougall's Advanced Study Weekend, for example, giving my From Fat Vegan to Skinny Bitch talk. Okay, well, I'm going to pick that one, because that's one of that came in. And I think because I was, well, first of all, I was present. I wasn't distracted like people in the audience were looking at their phone. I was fully present. it was something I had prepared for a long time, at least mentally, I mean, it was a dream I've always wanted to present it his thing. I had presented as a chef, but never as a speaker. So it was fulfilling a dream. And it was, I don't know. I just remember that it was, and it's funny because the other thing that came to mind was when I was on the Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. And both of these times, I almost feel like it wasn't even me doing it. It was like God working within me. It was almost like I was just this vessel and something powerful came through me that I was able to deliver. And when you feel that, you feel very, and just talking about it and remembering it, it's like, I just remember those two things as just being I don't know, just wonderful experiences where I was either entertaining or educating people. And the truth is, it didn't even feel like I was doing anything. I feel like I had prepared for it to the best of my ability, like when you study for a test, but then I just kind of let go and it happened. And those are rare. I don't want to say they're rare moments, but they're less frequent moments than the moments I spend in anxiety. So yeah, that's my answer.
Oh,
Great question. Fun.
Oh,
It's a fun game. I'll have to
Thank
give you guys a link to these cards. This is, we should be playing this on Zoom with our groups.
Well, I hope that's coming. We're working on that. Give free conversation spark sessions. Thank you for sharing all that. I do feel so filled up. But before I say more about my own experience, I want to give the feedback. So to me, Chef, from what I heard, this is a story about preparation and the realization of a dream. You value being in alignment with your values. You value very much giving back. You value expertise. You value truth. You value being in the present moment. You value many of the things we've been talking about in this time together. So this is a story about you being really you and opening up to something even beyond you.
That's true, because in both those things I was very vulnerable and I was taking a risk, and either people really loved it or they didn't. But yeah, it's great when you can really be yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, couple other questions, and this is for listeners too, or viewers too. Think about how connected you felt to yourself. You already alluded to this a minute ago, and connected you felt to me during that experience.
No, it was great. It was fun. I mean, this should we should do this as a show, maybe Thursdays with Tom, where we could actually bring another person on. But yeah, we really don't talk to people on that level, Tom. It's more like, all people seem to want to know is what I eat. What do you eat? How do you exercise? And it's just, and I have enough of videos on that. It's like, it's the same thing every day. I'd love big changes, but nobody ever asks, I don't want to say nobody, but very few people ever ask deep questions like that. And that's why most relationships are more superficial than deep.
And it feels good to go a little deeper, doesn't it? Yes.
It's fun. You're good. You're good. I had no idea it was going to go like this. Good.
Thank you. Look at you smile. I see your face. Your eyes are lighting up. Okay, this is what it's about. This is deeper connection. This is sparking something. And I just want to point out, so what I did is I listened really deep. I did not interrupt you. I was tempted a number of times to say things. But I just let you go. I really provided a space for you. And I was listening for themes and values. I was listening for, what is she really saying? What if I had to distill it down to a sentence or two, how could I summarize it in my own words? And two, what's important to you? I was really listening for your values. So when people feel heard with a summary of what they said, even if it's not 100% on, by the way, and when people feel known through their values, they feel more connected to themselves and to the other person. So in a nutshell, that's this game. There's 102 sparks like this. And the encouragement is for the listener to listen in that way and give feedback in that way. And this is the most, it's not the only way at all. It's a powerful kind of portable way I found to bring this experience to people. So now hopefully they know what I mean when I say, I hope you'll go connect after a talk.
That's amazing. I want to respect your time, but there's somebody watching named Paul who's not able to post, and he has a question because the question that is, he wants a few tips on what to do when his anxiety rears its ugly head. When he feels avoided, his anxiety rises, which is upsetting to him. And I try to explain to, first of all, I can't see his post, but I also try to explain to him that I can't get to every single person's question, that the best way to get your question answered is to email them in advance, like some people did. Those are the questions I asked. But let's see, the question was, I guess he's wants to know what to do about anxiety, and he's lashing out to loved ones. So anyway, you want to address that?
Of course.
I'm not trying to increase this gentleman's anxiety, but I really don't see his posts. And
yeah. So Paul, first of all, my heart goes out to you. I would say the first thing that comes to me is, and this is very counterintuitive to many people with anxiety. I get it. Because many of us, again, in our culture, we're trained to sort of avoid or suppress. So instead of that, and again, that makes it worse. It kind of is like a pressure cooker. If we have anxiety and we avoid it, it's going to come out some way. And it might be a way that you don't want if you suppress it. So open to it when the anxiety comes up. Oh, this is mindfulness practice. Oh, anxiety is coming up. Notice where it is in your body. Go to that place in your body. For me, it's often butterflies in my stomach. Oh, butterflies are coming up in my stomach. You hear my voice. It's a curious. It's not shaming. It's not avoidant. It's just, oh, there it is again. There's my friends. There's my anxiety friend, acknowledging it's there. Then I just did it. Take a deep breath. Open to it. Bring in more breath. Begin to slow the body down. Slow the body down. Identify what you might need in that moment. It might be reaching out to a friend. It might be saying something to yourself that's reassuring. It might be going for a walk. Anxiety is often so physical that getting it out of your body is very, very helpful. It might be listening to some music to kind of shift you into a different state. Was there a second part of the question? Something about family or?
When he's avoided, again, see, what people don't understand is that you don't see the feed, and the feed I see about 10 comments. We have like 200 comments, and I see 10 at a time, and then they disappear. Right. Okay. And if I try to write down everything, then I'm not present to what you're saying.
Of course. So
when he's ignored on these chats, he lashes out, and I can't give, even though people say, oh, I only have 100 people watching from this platform, I have up to 1,000 people watching, and I cannot tend to every single person at every second on these feeds.
Of course not.
And most of our guests anyway do private consultations, which is what I've recommended to him, is to like with yourself or Dr. Doug Lyle. Right.
Yeah. Well, we attended to part of the question as much as we could gather in this moment, at least.
Oh my goodness. Somebody said your book is available on Kindle right now for 99 cents.
Yes, that's part of it.
I should have posted that link instead of the hardcover book. Of course, I'm a person that I like to read with holding things instead.
Oh, I'm with you. Only in a pinch do I read online. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Doesn't matter even if it's free. I still want to have the book. So
99 cents, in part because of the pandemic. I wanted to make this more available to people. So 99 cents. Electronic version of the book is available now.
I will go, while you answer the next question, I'll look for the link. But what is Lemonade Meditations? I saw that on your website.
Yeah, this is another response to COVID-19. And yeah, it's kind of the most prominent thing on our website right now. So my dear colleague, Nate Page, and I, also a psychologist, right away when the pandemic hit, decided we wanted to offer something to help people both with the increase in anxiety and in feelings of isolation. So Lemonade Meditation is a guided meditation every Saturday it starts at 10:30 a.m. Central Time. And it just goes for 40 minutes till 10 after 11. The first half hour or so is a guided meditation live via Zoom. And then we reserve the last 10 minutes for a little bit of fellowship, talking about how people are doing, what's helping them in these days, or how are they responding to the particular meditation we did that day. That's free. The details are on fullheartliving.com. Like I said, it's the most prominent thing. It's the first thing that pops up if you go to my website. Please join us.
Yeah, that's great. And just maybe if you want to like end with just some tips or tricks on how we just maintain or attain better happiness and mental health during this pandemic. Some of the things you said really resonated with me, like eating better and making sure we do exercise like yoga. Some people are really taking the time with the sheltering, which is over for some people, but many states still are, to actually learn to cook better and eat better and do better self-care. And other people are like throwing their hands in there saying, well, I may as well just eat all the crap that I can because the sky is falling. And then those people are going to wake up and realize when this is over, that wasn't probably the best choice.
Right? Yes. I'm encouraging people to, the word that keeps coming to mind around this, Chef, is exquisite self-care these days. We really need exquisite self-care to cope with something that it is so unprecedented and pervasive. I'm finding, as again, I'm so inspired by so many other people, I'm picking up the phone more and really hearing people's voices. I'm loving that. So connecting with people who, again, in the busy life pre-pandemic, pre-quarantine, I maybe didn't take the time to actually have a phone call. And it's been so heartwarming. I feel like I'm waking up to my relationships more, and just parts of me are coming alive. It's a silver lining of this time. So connecting more with other people. So many people are talking about loving their daily walks now, either alone or with a loved one or with their animal. Really just drink in those precious moments. Let the sunshine in. Really see the trees. Really take in the aromas that are surrounding you. So you're here. I'm encouraging using all the senses. Feel the wind on your skin. So connecting with oneself, connecting with others. Pick up that old hobby if you've let it go. Connect with or adapt your love to this time. As again, so many people are doing. We're seeing these orchestras on Zoom. It's so inspiring the way that people are being creative. So it's just back to what we're saying: connect with yourself, connect with others, with your passions, and how can you offer it to be of service to others.
Yeah, I agree. And this is my service to others, because the biggest missing in my life when this happened is I do a lot of volunteer work with Bailey. Even though she's my service dog, she's also trained as a therapy dog. And we used to go to the Desert Regional Medical Center Hospital every week for 3 hours. And we would go to the library for the reading programs twice a week, in the schools. So I was volunteering 5 days a week, and it left a big void in my life. So this is, now I don't know how I'm going to get back to it because I got this show to do, but I agree. And, talking to you, just, I think happiness is contagious. It's infectious, because I definitely feel, I get a little stressed before these, because people think that I just have to sit here. They don't understand that there's like this whole tech component. And, we had a little glitch right before. And so just talking to you has calmed me down. It's reassured me. And people are saying things like, for example, Jan says, he is wonderful. I feel like I have been hugged by a teddy bear. Exquisite self-care. And I'm going to remember that. I'm going to use it. I'll give you credit. But that's what we need all the time, not just during a pandemic. Marie says, he has a gentle presence. Ellen says, Tom's kindness and empathy oozes in capitalized letters out in a good way and calms my soul with gratitude for his presence today. So anyway, thank you, Louise, for all the great guests, all these wonderful recommendations. And I really enjoyed hearing from you and getting to know you. And, even though I have your book, I think I'm going to get it on Audible if you read it, because you have a very gentle speaking voice too.
Thank you. I am the narrator on the Audible version. Yes, it's me. It's my voice. Okay.
Yeah, I bet your clients love you. I just bet that they do. Yeah. And I can't wait to, that you can get out here, and we'll, maybe we can do something together in person when you come out here. Who knows?
I would love it.
Yeah, absolutely. We didn't even get to how you eat, but if you don't eat super healthfully, I will definitely help you do that, because that's one of my passions, is to get people to eat more plants, especially vegetables.
Go for it.
All right.
Thanks.
Well, guys, please check out Full Heart Living on Amazon. It's only 99 cents today on Kindle. And of course, we have this wonderful thing as well that we played with today. You can watch this, and please share this interview with your friends. And please come back in about 45 minutes at 1 p.m. when we're going to have a wonderful chef demo with the low-fat herbivore Jocelyn Gray. Thank you guys for being here. I really appreciate it. And thank you, Tom. It really was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you. Same here. Bye.